Hello, my friends. Hello, everybody. And let's talk about machos males, alpha males season 4. So let's first just bring a little bit information about the characters, of course. And first of all, this stream is gonna be focusing a lot on Paz and Luz couple. So first of all, the alpha male series portrays a variety of modern relationship models. And Luz and Paz basically represent one of those models because they are considered to be a modern, non traditional relationship. And the traditional family model no longer works, but a valid alternative has yet to emerge. So this means basically that their relationship also not so flawless. It has its, downsides. For example, Luz hates the idea that she lives in Paz's house, that she is some type of, housewife, but not like traditional housewife. And even like gifts and something like this, getting your disappointment even bigger in the tradition, in the concept of their marriage, because they basically try to avoid the traditional marriage. So they decided basically to move from that traditional marriage. And now basically she feels the same tropes, the same basically, treatment as she was getting from marriage with Raul, her ex. But it was not like the same or something, because Raul basically, she is the opposite of what considered to be romantic anarchy, because basically Raul is a character who represents those alpha males in this TV show, and his transition from traditional toxic masculinity to new masculinities, those who basically different and not basically living the same lifestyle that Raul used to live, basically. So his transition in this TV show and his relationship with Luz is so like interconnected, because Luz, she has already chosen another life. They already moving into this big house with her wife Paz. But she feels like she is in this trap and being basically gifted everything, including shoes and trips. Paz basically trying to kind of shower Luz with everything, but she is well intentioned, of course. At the same time, it's not really like any different from traditional marriage. The marriage that basically Luz had before Paz. Because she feels the same. She feels she has the same position as she had in her traditional marriage with Raul. Now basically Paz is kind of in dominant position, so she's giving Luz everything, even new workspace. She set up a law firm for them, primarily for Luz, of course. And it feels kind of monogamous and patriarchal. Even consider that they are lesbians. Even consider that if we trying to imagine that they are just human and not trying to separate those gender identities. Let's talk about characters as just humans, no labels. So let's imagine basically that Luz is just a partner of Paz. It doesn't matter if they are just queer couple or straight traditional couple. Let's talk about these two as if they are just human. So Paz basically considers Luz her wife, even though not in traditional way, but in this basically marriage, in this specific relationship, it works the same. She brings her to all her meetings, to all her events, business meetings, and she primarily uses her as, let's say, companion rather than equal partner in this business, in the law firm or something like this. So she gave that law firm to Luz. This way she basically can keep her outside of that patriarchal system that Luz basically was working on before, because basically Luz was surrounded by mostly male environment. She was working in that male dominated environment. Luz decided basically to quit that job, and Paz basically gave her this opportunity. She gave her a law firm, and she even introduced her to a new friend circle, which mostly consists of housewives. And the difference between being a housewife, like in the most traditional way, and being married to a rich woman like Paz, is that basically those housewives, they do not do anything. Mostly what they do really, they gather, they basically discussing the problems of being beautiful, being pretty, being a housewife. And basically Luz, she's so like distant from that. She doesn't understand basically what the difference between like being housewife and being just paid for, let's say, for love. But from Paz's perspective, everything is just an opportunity to basically find new connections. As a businesswoman, she basically thinks a little bit differently from Luz. She basically invites everybody, even if she doesn't like basically those neighbors. She would use that opportunity. She would use every opportunity to basically find new partners, new investors, and she even gave Luz and her friends a trip to Dubai. She gave them that trip, even though they are not even her friends. She considers Luz's happiness as something basically depends not only on their marriage and their relationship, but on her relationship with her friends. So she basically giving all her friends free trip. They do not spend anything. They just went to Dubai to meet Paz and to spend 24 hours in Dubai. And this is not like, traditional trip, because Dubai is so like distinct from Spain. It differentiates like everything, including parties. They used to basically more like, they used to more free spaces that not limited to specific traditions or something. And in Dubai, basically, they face this new basically reality. The trip wasn't really that good, because after the trip they decided they need to open their marriage. Maybe they should have just chosen different destination or something. Maybe this trip was supposed to be a business trip in the first place. Maybe this space, this specific club or something, was not a good choice. So basically during this trip they decided, specifically Paz decided, that they need to open their marriage, open their relationship. Because there is no way that they can be equally happy, since basically Luz has no choice but to go on any trip, any business meeting, any dinner that basically Paz organizes. And she feels kind of the same way she felt in a relationship with Raul, because Raul was kind of not respecting her professional life. For Raul, basically, empowered woman is something basically that not aligns with his traditional views. But Paz, basically, she respects Luz in her professional life. This is why she gave her that law firm. She even named that law firm Ferrero and Artigas, they named that firm after their second names. Basically, Artigas is second name of Paz, and Ferrero apparently is second name of Luz. But since they opened this marriage, now basically everything has changed. They need now to embrace this new life, this new lifestyle. And open marriage basically implies that you freely go and just hook up with anybody. But there is one exception for Luz. She cannot hook up with her ex Raul, since basically Paz hates Raul because of his toxic masculinity and his objectification of women. Yeah. They had basically previously encountered each other, and Paz basically rejected Raul even when she didn't know that basically Raul was ex of her partner Luz. And this one condition is what basically Luz has to remember of. But it's not like she has a lot of choices. She has basically nobody to score. And she thinks even, and she basically getting advices from her friends with whom she can potentially hook up, because now basically she needs to keep up with this new lifestyle. She needs to embrace it. She needs to understand if it's worth to be in an open marriage, or if she needs to, think through a little bit more. So basically, she got hit on by her new friend Jimena, who is one of those housewives. That was kind of an opportunity to jump into that open marriage reality and try something new, since basically Jimena openly expressed her disappointment in traditional marriage, and being housewife led her to this situation when she openly tried to kiss Luz, but basically Luz rejected that attempt. She explained Jimena that if you're not happy with your traditional marriage, since Luz is a divorce lawyer, she can easily divorce Jimena and her husband. But this is not the way to solve their situations. Even though for Luz, this is like kind of solving your situation, because this is just casual hook up. There is no strings attached, and this is just your friend, even not even friend, but acquaintance. But she decided that she would basically keep Jimena in that friend zone, and even get Jimena and her husband divorced, since Jimena openly expressed her disappointment in her marriage. Luz basically took her as a client. Now basically she is managing her divorce, but her ex Raul appeared unannounced. Raul basically currently dating another woman, but he asks for a divorce with that other woman. he married that woman, Mariar, at the church. There is some differences in marrying somebody at the church and marrying somebody in traditional way. I don't know what the difference is, but there is no easy way out of that marriage. The marriage that basically Raul has right now. So she asked his ex to solve his divorce, to handle it. And it's not like she really wants, but she tries basically to keep boundaries between her and Raul, since he is that person she cannot be with. He is the only exception in this open marriage. But after she came home, she found out basically that Paz not wasting no time. She was surprised that basically Paz scored already a 30 years old yoga teacher. She brought her home and she even let her stay. And that was kind of too much, because since Luz didn't succeed yet, she felt like Paz is so rushing this open relationship and she is so intense. Like, to keep up with this pace, Luz basically asked Paz not bringing home her new woman, and since Luz basically still not found anybody, she technically didn't score nobody since they opened this marriage. She sees this like you know, coming home to another woman, and of course she's getting a little bit jealous. So to make this up for Luz, Paz basically offers her a trip, and this is not just casual trip. She offers a trip for Luz and all her friends, including their husbands, their exes, no matter what. They basically not going together. Paz stays in Spain, but she basically letting Luz bring whoever she wants. And she also basically criticized how Luz insisted on Jimena's divorce, since basically Jimena, she was kind of convinced by Luz that she needs to divorce her husband. For Paz, it's kind of hurting her work, because Jimena's husband is a client or a potential investor of Paz. She basically tried to secure investments from the neighbors, and Jimena is their neighbor. So since basically Jimena is going to divorce that man, Paz basically will lose her investments into her hotel business. But at this point, basically, this relationship seems to be transactional, since every new meeting, every event, basically mostly focusing on securing those investments, finding new connections, new business partners, everything just, everything is about past. So this is why basically Luz feels those traditional marriage tropes. She feels like she is not being equally respected in terms of her professional life. Meanwhile, basically her friends, they were really happy about this trip, since basically they are getting this free trip to another country. More specifically, they go into Punta Cana, and 4 couples going to Punta Cana for free just because Luz and Paz had that argument, just because they were fighting. Luz brought basically everybody to Punta Cana. Even those who were already in basically separate, who were basically living separate lives with their partners, or basically they just shared living space, but they were also either divorced or separate, they were also invited. So everybody basically goes to Punta Cana just because one single fight between Luz and Paz. So to make up everything for Luz, Paz was ready to basically give her this trip with all her friends. I could only imagine who's ready for this kind of move. To basically let your partner bring every single friend to on a trip, and the initial organizer of this trip even not there. She is only investing into this. And even Raul, basically, whom Paz hates so much, she really hates Raul, maybe even some of his friends as well, he is also goes on this trip. He is right there. Basically, this is the opportunity that in real life probably would never really happen. I mean, for Luz, this trip is a good way to rest, but this trip also basically caused this situation. When Raul tried to get back with Luz, so basically she found herself kind of in the middle of her crisis with Paz. At the same time, past basically let her go on a trip with her ex, the one they basically past doesn't like. So this creates this like awkward situation because Raul is just, he is there primarily basically with Mariar. He is there for another woman, but he feels like he can use this trip to try to get back with Luz. He tried to convince her that she is the only woman she loves. But at the same time, she went on that trip with another woman already. And Mariar is already married to Raul, even though he wants to divorce Mariar. And he asks Luz to help him with a divorce since she is a divorce lawyer. Before even divorcing her, before even divorcing Mariar, Raul already trying to get back with Luz. Of course, it's not gonna work. Basically, this trip also went wrong. It wasn't as bad as Dubai trip, but since this trip, it's like family trip because all families, even though they are mostly divorced families or like living separate lives or living, actually all of them living in the same houses. I mean, like they separate, they are not romantically involved with each other, but they living still together. All couples, they are still living with their partners. But this trip basically exposed all the problems they have, all the struggling reality basically they try to escape. But this trip even exposed it further, showing that basically by trying to run away from your problems in your failed marriage and going on some trip, it's only going to further deteriorate your current state, because basically they are not able to focus on getting rest, getting this trip only for, having fun. And the only person who can actually have fun during this trip, the only person who actually had fun on this trip to Punta Cana was this woman, Bianca, because maybe she was the only person who already really moved on from her partner Santi, since basically she separated from Santi. Even though they live in the same house, they are already not together. She moved on from that relationship, and Santi pursues another woman, and this woman, Bianca, she basically seems to be happy just because she moved on. All other couples, they have not decided yet if they are really happy in this new relationship, in their new relationships they found after breaking up with their initial partners. But Bianca seems to be really happy. So all other couples, they are just desperate at this point. It doesn't matter if it's Punta Cana or Spain. They're basically problems getting brought up everywhere. And some of those problems just not so, important, just minor issues, but some of them, of course, they have like bigger problems. But this show tries to show you that even like this show tries to show you that traditional family models no longer work, but there is no valid alternative. So that means basically, while the traditional marriage failed, for example, for Luz, her marriage with Raul really failed, but this alternative with Paz, it's also not really fully developed yet. It's like on this, is in this like stage when they trying to find balance or something. So on this point, basically season 4 ended. Of course, there was a lot of other there was specifically this trip focused on male protagonists getting manned up again, getting their masculinities back, getting their toxic masculinities back, because they basically went through this deconstruction. They basically deconstructed themselves from traditional masculines to new masculines. Like new masculinities means, again, new masculinities mean like there is no misogyny, there is no, objectifying of women. New misogynists, oh my god, new masculinities they mostly basically prioritize romantic anarchy. So romantic anarchy is the type of relationship when every partner equally respected in professional life, in personal life. There is no like traditional rules when man provides and woman just stays at home. So this is why basically this trip was supposed to be giving their masculinities back. Since they went through the deconstruction, they needed to reconstruct themselves. But now they need to regain their masculinities, but they need to keep that anarchy. They need to keep new values basically they found after going through that deconstruction. So throughout basically 3 seasons, they try to deconstruct themselves. They try to get rid of the toxic masculinities, even though not all of them really were just traditional alpha males. For example, Santi was just from the very beginning more over that, new masculine, or whatever it's called. A lot of terms basically that just, I'm trying to keep up with, but the most important basically is that during season 4, those 4 men, they basically went through this camp to regain their masculinities. They tried to basically maintain their current personalities, the new basically personalities they found after the deconstruction. And now they found themselves in this, let's say, environment they used to live before the deconstruction, because this camp mostly represents everything they represented before the deconstruction, everything that included everything basically that implies alpha male behavior. So after basically they completed that camp, they realized, maybe, but not all of them. For example, Santi, basically he even took over this camp and he became a leader of this camp, since the actual leader, he was hiding his true personality, his true identity. This whole time he was just showing this dominant alpha male personality, but in reality basically he was a gay, and Santi discovered that fact. He found basically that man with another one, so he basically used this against him, since basically that was the only way to survive that camp. Because to get out of that camp, you need to complete all the basically tasks you need to complete, and you need to stay at this camp like for the whole period. And they even signed some contracts, but the only way to get out of that early is just escaping all the guards. And so one of those men basically tried to run away. He managed to escape that camp, but they basically treating everybody who deserted. Let's say this is like army, and they really treat people, even though they are their clients, they treat their clients as their army. They really just serving there, and they treat anybody escaped as a deserter. So this perfect like example of the comedy just mixing the two basically different realities right now. One reality is this, staged toxic behavior by this leader, and the other reality is the one that he was hiding basically. And during this trip, basically they revealed his identity, and this way they basically, specifically Santi, basically he showed that nobody should ever hide vulnerability or something, even like a man like this who is in charge of alpha male camp or something like this, who represents basically, who is embodiment of toxic masculinity. Even this person has his vulnerabilities, and he showed basically him that it's okay to stop hiding that. So during that trip, a lot of, I would say, good moments and funny, really funny moments. I watched really just this whole season, and I enjoyed really every moment of this TV show. But I'm still trying to watch some previous seasons, like season 3, for example, because there is some prehistory that you need to know if you really like this season, for example, and you never watched season 3, you probably missed the process of establishing their new realities. For example, Luz, basically after breaking up with Raul, she went through this new, she went through this change. She needed to adapt to this new life, since her basically partner right now is a woman. And I'm going to read some more information from season 3 specifically because not all of you know or watch season 3, and this would clarify how they really established this relationship, because now they seem really successful and happy couple, but it wasn't really like this at the beginning. So the traditional family model no longer works, but a valid alternative has yet to emerge. The Alpha Male series portrays a variety of modern relationship models. So Luz and Paz, basically, they are representing one of those modern relationship models, and their relationship mostly built on mutual respect and avoiding traditional patriarchal values, like basically Luz had when she was in this relationship with Raul. And her definitive breakup with Raul, a separation fueled by his repeated infidelities and his struggle to accept her professional success. So basically, he was unfaithful. That was the initial reason of their breakup in season 3, apparently, or even early. So she started an official relationship with Paz. And Paz is a confident, high-achieving businesswoman pursuing a new hotel business. Luz is an experienced lawyer who, after 8 years at a firm being passed over for a deserved promotion, decided to quit. So basically, she was, let's say, her promotion she expected, it was not given to her. She decided to quit her work after working 8 years on the law firm. She decided to quit the job. So to support her, Paz set up a prestigious law firm, and specifically naming this firm after their second names. Despite her professional confidence, Paz feels deeply insecure around toxic masculinity, particularly Luz's ex, Raul, of course. Even before learning his identity, Paz rejected Raul for objectifying her and dismissively labeling her as a biker chick. That accident actually happened in season 3, and within the show's theme of deconstruction, Raul's use of the word chick is represented as a clear symptom of the very misogyny he is supposed to be unlearning. So basically, Raul, his attempts to be complimentary only expose his inability to engage with women without a reductive gendered lens. So this, for example, another situation for Luz, after she already broke up with Raul, another man just tried to hit on her, and that was perfectly the same gendered complimentary comments, something that basically she thought she already forgot, since basically she is not anymore with Raul, but there is still somebody who can remind her about that. Maybe she feels right now that after basically getting with a woman, after basically marrying Paz, she kind of pushing away automatically all those men, all those people who basically making those awkward comments or something, even though as compliments they are still gendered. And for example, basically for Paz, the relationship with a woman is not only a way to keep those men like Raul or other toxic masculines, to keep them away, but for her it's only kind of a good image She uses basically Luz to introduce her hotel business, since Paz basically has a huge hotel business. She uses Luz to show up on public. She uses this successful couple image, but she is not really like fully respecting Luz's professional life, since basically she can just like this, she can intervene and she can get carried away. If she wants something, she can really forget about Luz in her professional life and just mess it up. So for Luz, it seems to be like really too much, since basically Paz considers her work and her business as just not as important as her own business. Even though basically they established this law firm together right now, Luz technically works on her partner Paz. Technically, she was given that position in that law firm, but what differentiates Luz from, for example, her new friend circle of housewives is that she doesn't really depend on Paz, or she doesn't really want to be a housewife, and she is not a housewife, but she goes on those meetings with those housewives because maybe she wants to see the actual, like, lifestyle of housewife, the one that she basically tries to not to get involved in. She tries to see basically what those women value, what they actually find appealing in being housewife. And she condemns, of course, their lifestyles, because even though she was also given a lot from Paz, she was given a law firm, she was giving trips, clothes, gifts, everything, but the difference is that in this relationship, she didn't expect any of that. And she got together with Paz primarily for her personality, not for her money. Even though Paz is really rich, she seems to be way too wealthy, and it can really overshadow career of a divorce lawyer. But throughout the season 4, Paz uses her business trips. Paz uses her business trips and her money to also basically make Luz and her friends feel that success. She wants not only to be a provider, she wants to share that moment. For example, she took them all to Dubai, and she offered basically Luz and all her friends this trip to Dubai. They went on that trip, even though that wasn't really just something they are used to, because Dubai is highly conservative compared to Spain. They felt immediately all the restrictions. For example, you cannot drink in clubs. At least that was one of those clubs they couldn't drink in. So they basically felt that trip mostly was focusing on pass and lose getting their basically failing relationship put together. They getting this opportunity to kind of make things up, but this relationship, it showed no sign of improvement, so they decided they need to open it. On this trip, they decided to open their marriage. Since basically Luz was the one who complained about the not respecting of your professional boundaries, of your needs. She requested simple things like not showering her with gifts, not buying her expensive gifts, not basically taking her on trips she didn't ask for, not taking her on meetings with housewives, not basically introducing her as just a pretty face, but to treat her equally wherever they go. She asked for being equally respected. It doesn't matter in professional, in personal life, but the trip basically went wrong for Luz and Paz, because initially the trip wasn't even planned as their reunion or something. That was so spontaneous, and it seems like Paz just used this trip because maybe she was getting bored, or maybe because she seems basically to be confused whether this relationship basically failing or not, since basically for her everything seems to be okay. She basically having her career, her hotel business growing. She finds new investors. Everything is going so well. But Luz basically with her divorce lawyer career, she seems to be more like, focused on independent income, independent career that basically not just given by Paz. She wants something that not depends on her partner's money. So she wants to build that. That means basically that she needs to separate professional and personal life. But she cannot really separate those two, because every trip, every meeting becomes about professional life, because Paz basically makes it about investments, partners, expanding her hotel business. Let's say she making, maybe unconsciously, but she's turning every personal moment into professional. And she is confused herself whether basically this open relationship is a way to fix things, or maybe it's just a way to run away from problems. And she is even confused if this open relationship really works this way, that they can basically freely hook up with anybody. So she asked for this confirmation, if this really fully like allows to just sleep with other people. And she got that confirmation, but for Luz, basically, there is no really a person that she wants to bring into this open relationship. So she tried kind of to find somebody, since open relationship implies that you embracing no limited encounterings with whoever you want. She tried to focus on, finding somebody, but since her only choice basically was either Raul, her ex, or Paz herself, she found herself basically kind of lost in this open relationship, because it means that you need to be persistent, you need to be looking for something, you need to be going somewhere, you need to be meeting somebody. But she only basically goes on these housewife meetings, and she discussing all the things basically those housewives care about. But for Luz, basically, it seems to be so like strange and, let's say, so different from what she values. For her, basically being in a marriage as a housewife, it means basically that at some point that person basically that you're married to will just replace you for somebody else, since basically everything based and everything built on transactional type of connection, not genuine connection. So she put those thoughts into one of the housewife woman. She put that thought specifically into Jimena's head. She kind of made her feel unhappy and unsure about being a housewife. She made her feel like she has more potential once she divorced her provider. As a divorce lawyer, she basically explained to her, if you getting divorced with your husband, and as a housewife, you has basically you, as a housewife, Jimena has your right to take like all the money she could have earned during that period of being housewife or something like this. Legally, there is specific, act when you can demand money from your partner after basically being even housewife, not working. She convinced that she still has more to get from that man even after divorcing him. She convinced her that divorcing him is even better than being a housewife. It's even better to take from him something after divorcing him, because this way she doesn't need to be a housewife anymore. And of course, this news basically is not so good for Paz, for Luz's partner, because Jimena was one of those women who married to potential investors of Paz and her business, her hotel business. But after Luz basically came back, after she came home, she found that Paz is already embracing this open relationship. She is fully going with scoring other women. She bringing home 30 years old yoga teacher. She is enjoying this very moment just because now they are in open relationship. She wasting no time, but for Luz, basically it seems to be stretched. She needs more time to adapt to this open relationship, not just jumping into this immediately. So she asked her that maybe she needs to slow down on bringing home other women. Maybe they need just to rethink this open marriage solution. Maybe it's not even a solution anymore, but this situation, as many other situations, turned into fighting because Paz basically found out that Luz helping Jimena divorce Jimena's husband, and this is again bad news for Paz because she was relying on Jimena's husband and his investments. Since Jimena divorcing that man, all investments gone, and that man is not going to invest in her hotel business because Luz basically contributed to his divorce with Jimena. So basically, Paz calling out Luz for putting that divorce into Jimena's head, that she convinced her to divorce that man. She kind of telling her that you don't really need to do things like this. Even if you don't like the way those housewives live their lives, even if you don't want the same lifestyle, if you hate those housewives, you don't need to make them divorce. But Luz actually freaked out because previously Paz herself told Luz that if she wants, she can get them all divorced. To keep herself entertained, she can divorce all those housewives. But she made this as a joke. She didn't really mean that. So she kind of calling out Luz for spoiling this business agreement and spoiling the potential investment. But there is the biggest problem basically rising for this couple, since this is already an open marriage. Both women, they basically should be equally into this idea. But it seems like for Luz, this open marriage really just even worse than traditional, since the only person who scores other women is Paz. The only person who actually embraces this open marriage is Paz. And to basically kind of get her off her shoulders, she just told her that she already scored one man, but she just lied about she lied about her encounter because she wanted just to stop this, intense and crazy, like, energy coming from Paz. So the whole basically concept of open relationship in Alpha Males season 4, it's kind of worked only for Paz. It only brought more problems for Luz, and it also brought more trips for all the main protagonists, because all main protagonists, all couples, they kind of close-knit community. They want basically to share every moment of their lives. They want to share every detail about their marriages. They want to go on trips together. So they use this opportunity, since basically Paz offered them a free trip to Punta Cana, Dominican Republic. They use this opportunity to go on a trip, even though the initial reason why this trip happened was Luz basically argued with her wife Paz, and Paz basically gave her this trip as a way to make up things with her. She didn't really go herself, but she let her bring all her friends. So she brought all her friend circle, including those she already, let's say, including those couples who already basically broke up. They were just living under the same roof because they were sharing responsibilities, like kids, like households, like other responsibilities, but all of those couples, they have the same problem. At some point in this TV show, they decided to go from traditional marriage, which is no longer working, and they decided to move from traditional to modern type of relationship. So they decided to still live under the same roof, but to date somebody else, kind of open relationship, but open relationship implies that you still in a romantic relationship with your initial partner, and you just bring in somebody into this. In this TV show, they all have their marriages just ruined because of miscommunications and not respecting boundaries and other stuff like infidelities. In Lou's situation, she broke up with Raul because of his infidelities and him not respecting her professional life. That Raul basically was the most toxic and the closest to that term of alpha male. He probably still remains as so, but compared to his initial alpha male personality, after deconstruction, after going through activities aimed at deconstructing your personality, deconstructing your alpha male personality, and becoming like a modern, a modern man or whatever it's called. So there is a big difference after his deconstruction and before. But he still basically holds that hope that he can get back with Luz. Even after breaking up with her, after his deconstruction, after going on all those trainings, and after basically he thought that he got rid of that toxic masculinity, there is just no way he can get back with Luz because she turned lesbian just because Raul wasn't able to, let's say, respect and treat her the way that woman is. He wasn't able to treat her, let's say, the way that Paz is. The way that Paz is treating is something that basically a man like Raul would never understand or even try. Because he thinks that basically their relationship mostly failed because not only his infidelities, but that Luz basically somehow also was a problem. He doesn't really just understand the actual reason. if he did understand, he would have never asked to come back, to get back with Luz. If he really understood, he would just let it go. This is what I understand about this. If you know that you failed, if you really screwed, if you screwed up your marriage, if you know that infidelity was the reason, if you know that your woman stayed faithful, you don't need any other chance to get back with that woman, since basically it will further just show that you never learned from that situation. You primarily just came on that trip to spend this time, this quality time, to make it trip about not family problems, but having fun, spending this time with your friends, and you trying to use this trip as something like getting back with a partner you cheated on. And the most, basically, the worst part is that he tried to use this moment absent Paz, absent Luz's current partner. He was trying to use this moment just because there is no Paz, there is no woman who can stop him from doing so. Maybe he would never basically try to kiss Luz if Paz was there. So this trip was just family trip, but all those families, they basically failed this trip to be so, because they mentioned and brought up every problem they had before going on this trip. They automatically basically made this trip just another, family issues and other stuff. All that basically ruined completely their trip. So the only person who really enjoyed the trip was Bianca. She was initial partner of Santi, one of the main protagonists, one of those alpha males who went through that deconstruction from traditional masculine to new masculine, modern masculine, or whatever it's called. She went through that deconstruction, but at this point, basically his initial partner, she already moved on, and she just doesn't care. She doesn't care about anybody, and specifically about her ex, Santi. So this is why she had fun, and she fully embraced this trip. But every other basically character, everybody supposed to be having fun as well, but all of them basically brought their problems on this trip. They basically made this trip about their domestic issues, their career problems, so their social media problems, and this way basically they ruined this trip basically that was given them for free. While basically Paz, the organizer, the provider of this trip, she was staying home. She didn't go on the trip because she initially organized that trip to make up things with Luz. But since basically Luz went with all her friends, including Raul. She couldn't really focus on basically the trip. Maybe it could have been really better if she just went alone with no friends, because all those friends, they just constantly bringing their problems into every situation, and this way basically she cannot just fully embrace and rest during the trip. So she came back, and now basically she's saying that if they keep this relationship, if they still committed to this relationship, Luz, she needs to be the one who wears panties. This means she wants upper position. She wants to be, let's say she wants to be a dominant position. She wants to be a dominant person in this relationship, but there's already a problem because this position already taken by Paz. She is in this role. She is a provider, and even though she is a woman and technically, basically, she is still taking this role of man in traditional marriage, because she doing all same things, from providing to the way basically she introduces her wife on public, and the way that she not compromising anything. Everything just, working the same way as in traditional marriage. And since basically they went from traditional to open marriage, they tried to kind of get away from this monogamous and patriarchal relationship, where when basically one person taking upper position and another person just adapts to this. They were specifically trying to avoid that, but now they understand that basically it doesn't matter if it's open or closed relationship. It can become at some point monogamous and patriarchal, even if two women together, they can basically make this that way. So this basically perfect example of how even for two women, a marriage that considered to be not traditional can turn into that if basically they using the same tropes and mimicking the rigid rules of a traditional marriage. So this is everything I was going to tell you, but there is more of like information that I would like to read maybe right now. So let's say this is the part where I'm going to record for my short video, since basically we aiming at doing both short content and streams. We go into this record part when I'm going just to read out loud everything that I prepared before, and this part specifically going to be turned into that short video. So I'm going to just play the whole video. You can just watch it and I'm going to read. The traditional family model no longer works, but a valid alternative has yet to emerge. The Alpha Male series portrays a variety of modern relationship models, satirizing how both men and women fumble through them. After Luz's definitive breakup with Raul, a separation fueled by his repeated infidelities and his struggle to accept her professional success, she started an official relationship with Paz. Paz is a confident, high-achieving businesswoman pursuing a new hotel venture. Luz is an experienced Luz is an experienced lawyer who, after 8 years at the firm and being passed over for a deserved promotion, decided to quit. To support her, Paz set up a prestigious law firm specifically for Luz. Despite her professional confidence, Paz feels deeply insecure around toxic masculinity, particularly Luz's ex, Raul. Even before learning his identity, Paz rejected Raul for objectifying her and dismissively labeling her a baker. My God. Even before learning his identity, Paz rejected Raul for objectifying her and dismissively labeling her a biker chick. Within the show's theme of deconstruction, Raul's use of the word chick is represented as a clear symptom of the very misogyny he is. Within the show's theme of deconstruction, Raul's use of the word chick is represented as a clear symptom of the very misogyny he is supposed to be unlearning. His attempts to be complimentary only expose his inability to engage with women without a reductive gendered lens. Raul's casual misogyny initially blinded him to the possibility that Luz was dating a woman, as he assumed Paz was merely a friend. After his friends proved the nature of their relationship, he showed up and announced. No, after his friends proved that Luz and Paz more than just friends, he showed up and announced to confront them. Upset by the confrontation and Luz's lingering connection to her ex, Paz retreated to her hotel suite to gain distance. Ultimately, Paz decided to propose to Luz partly because she hated the idea of sharing her with Raul. That actually happened in season 3. However, beneath their professional success, Luz begins to feel trapped. She realizes their marriage has become monogamous and patriarchal, mimicking the rigid rules of a traditional marriage and leaving her feeling sidelined. This tension peaks when Paz organizes a high-stakes dinner to secure hotel investments, reducing Luz to a decorative, perfect hostess. This leads to a major confrontation where Luz challenges Paz for using her as a status symbol rather than a professional partner and an equal in their firm. As the traditional rules of their marriage collapse, they decide to experiment with an open relationship. Despite the new openness, Paz enforces one strict rule. Luz is forbidden from sleeping with Raul. Friction arises when Luz returns home to find this moment exactly right there. Friction arises when Luz returns home to find a 30-year-old yoga teacher walking out of Friction arises when Luz returns home to find a 30-year-old yoga teacher walking out after being scored by Paz. Luz begins to freak out at how quickly Paz is wasting no time bringing home new women. Recognizing that Luz is struggling to keep up with the pace of this new dynamic, Paz decided to give her a break by sending her on a trip to Punta Cana. Paz does not go herself. She allows Luz to bring all her friends along. As the fourth season concludes in January 2026, neighbors and investors... Oh no, this is some bullshit. This is not correct. The finale leaves them in a state of uncertainty, forcing Paz and Luz to decide if their modern experiment is worth the loss of their elite status. A fifth season has already been officially confirmed by Netflix. I don't think that last sentence makes any sense. The finale leaves them in a state of uncertainty, forcing Paz and Luz to decide if their modern experiment is worth the loss of their elite status. I don't like this elite status shit. The finale leaves them in a state of uncertainty, forcing Paz and Luz to decide if their modern experiment... There should be something else. Modern experiment. Not elite status. Let's see what it... Paz and Luz decided... Okay, AI just suggesting some bullshit, so I think the ending should be just completely different. It's just texting me some complete bullshit. So, thank you for watching, guys. See you next time. And if I'm going to make more videos, if this is really just enough information for a short video, it's gonna be released pretty soon. Thank you for watching. Goodbye.